Turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. Psychopath X and Her Family of Flying Monkeys by Wolful Raven. This was back in 2022, but I still think about it sometimes. I was 24, male, naive, and was fighting with my father. I was still fighting a mental health battle and had no idea just how messed up I still was. My whole life I was groomed to just take over the house when he dies, and was put down about anything else I wanted to do. Anything else besides the grind was unnecessary. No getting a degree or building a career. No extracurriculars in school or clubs. Being 70, you would think he'd have some wisdom from a life well lived. Lessons to be learned. But he was just an aggressive liberal who thought everyone but him was stupid. Would make friends out of Republicans just so he can get high and bully them. Would assume I didn't know how to do something if he hadn't taught me, and called me a pussy if I ever defended myself. We were fighting a lot lately, and I just wanted to move out and go be independent. I've been working factory jobs for years and could afford it. Eventually I got a message from this girl I knew. She was the first person I ever dated. I knew her for 12 years in total, and we disconnected for 8 of them. She said she was in the area and wanted to reconnect. She had just gotten out of a toxic relationship. I wasn't aware of just how bad her life was yet. We spent time together. My father hated her. I had problems with her family a lot. Jumped by her brother in high school at times, and there was a feud. But she moved out early on and was always the reasonable, empathetic one. She seemed okay. There's times I look back now and cringe how I thought I knew how the world worked. My father hated her and refused to let her be around me, but refused to elaborate what red flags he was seeing. You know, the because I say so personality. I'm still confident that if he had explained it to me, I might have at least listened. But I was just so over his toxicity, the put-downs, threatening me like I was unintelligent. I went to stay with her and her family for a few days. After the back and forth over text, he eventually says he wants me gone, so I moved in with them. They wasted no time convincing me that he was manipulative and controlling, that he was using me, that my dog, who was showing signs of trauma since I got him from the puppy mill, was probably being abused by him. They seemed so nice and welcoming, so supportive. It was her adoptive mother, her stepfather, her stepbrother, and her bio-father was still in the picture. I now have no idea who the other family was to her. They told me odd things that other family members would confirm. Her bio-father was an FBI agent. He was a compulsive liar, is what he was, and her family was all his flying monkeys. They convinced me they had ties to organized crime and had multiple people confirm it too. I am truly ashamed how I let that one go. The stepfather was a friend of bio-father and had this Tony Soprano air around him sometimes. These were red flags galore, and I acknowledged them. But my hands were tied and the door was closed behind me. This felt like my life now. Girlfriend would, over the course of 4 months, start fights between me and the mother. Make up things she would do, make up things I would do. Try to start things every chance she get. She made it seem like it was me and her against them. I was close to the stepdad. He seemed real enough, cried in my arms when his uncle died, called me his son, treated me like one. But things were stress. Toxic X, who was his actual son, came back into the picture, and I hated that. I had to coexist. She was obviously cheating, and when I went to leave, they told me she was pregnant and showed me the test. Told me that if I walked away, I'd get my jaw broken. Then put into concrete shoes and dropped in the canal. I was now surviving. I was having a hard time getting a job, and the biofather pretended to pull some strings, and suddenly I got accepting packing ice cream in the distribution center of a popular gas station. The money was good, but mentally I was absent. I lasted a month, but I was sitting in the car out front every morning, and sometimes I would laugh, then scream and cry, then it felt like I was full of sand. I lost a job because I was getting clumsy and dropping an iron magnet that cost $10,000 and broke it. After I got fired, I was fully convinced I would be murdered by the biofather, as I was told by the family I would be. Eventually, the ex ran off to be with her ex, and I sat down and talked with the family. We all compared notes about what happened and clicked everything together, and they seemed to turn against her for the monumental chaos she brought. She pushed my mental health so much that they almost convinced me to admit myself into the psych ward. They would let me snap, then act like I'm abusive. They disowned her and apologized for everything, let me stay for a while. I was now an alcoholic and everything just hurt. Getting blackout drunk every night. When I did leave, I went back to my father's. It was a few months before the adopted mother called me, screaming about how I'm saying I slept with her apparently, and not to worry about how she heard about it. Turns out the ex had been calling them and saying lies about me, and they never disowned her. I had done a lot of research into manipulative and dark psychology by now. I know what they did to me. I blocked them all and changed my numbers and profiles. I have 27 profiles with the same 3 people blocked on Facebook, and I still, to this day, see faces in the crowd who look familiar and forget how to break. After a year of drinking to die, I quit cold turkey, got a better job, got my credit score up to 678, and paid off most of my debt. The ex used to lie about liking my singing, but now I don't need validation on it. She had a baby shortly after leaving, and I, to this day, don't know if it's mine or not. I refuse to find out because I know the lengths she'd go to get money with no contact. I admitted so many more things they did, and I know now that if they were in organized crime and in the FBI, they wouldn't have told me about it. I still look over my shoulder because they know where I live. I live with my father again. We still fight relentlessly, but I understand him more. To the inhuman nightmare that showed me just how easy I was to take advantage of, let's never meet again. As I crested the rocky hill, I found my boyfriend laying on the side of the road, holding his shattered ankle and crying about how he was so sorry. You should have known better than to try the alpine divorce crap on someone who served in the army, I said, shaking my head and continuing along the trail until his cries fade away. I, 24 female, think I'm being stalked, and I can't tell by how many people. By Any Jello 9719. I know the title sounds paranoid, but please bear with me. I work full-time at a public university in the US as an office manager and an enroller in a grad school at the same institution. I graduate this May. I have an in-person night class 3 days a week that start right after I get off work. My apartment is on the first floor of a complex about 10 minutes away. Over the past few months, I've had numerous bizarre occurrences around my home and workplace. The first, to my knowledge, was in September, and was something my neighbor across the hall, very sweet old woman, told me. A man was banging on my door for around an hour just after midnight. I was not home. My neighbor poked her head out and asked him what was going on, and he said he was a door dasher, with no food or bags in his hands apparently. My neighbor watched him through the peephole and told me he tried the doorknob multiple times. No Ring camera or anything, so no footage. As far as I know, he didn't come back, but I also had 3 or 4 instances over the several-month period where someone knocked on my bedroom window. Blackout curtains always closed. Late at night, long enough to wake me up and my tiny dog. Never saw who it was. In October, a woman came to my sliding glass door about a month later demanding to come in because her stolen device had apparently been pinging in my apartment. When I refused, she called the sheriff's department. The deputy who came asked me a couple of questions and left, but did confirm that a device was pinging in my apartment. Never found out she meant a phone or what. The woman hung out in the parking lot before leaving a few minutes later. Obviously, I never stole any phone, so I was completely bewildered. Never saw her again. In December, things came to a head when I found a plug-in GPS tracker in the OBD port under my dashboard. Car dealership where it got serviced last said they didn't use that brand. Land, Air, Sea, and yes, I have the model and serial number, and didn't perform any services that would have warranted putting it in there. I called the cops and they just wrote down a few details and left. University police were also informed since the tracker was probably placed either on campus or at my apartment. The tracker was the biggest red flag. I never checked my OBD port, so I had no idea how long it was there. I told my unit director, and he offered to subtly remove mentions of me around the office and on the website, which I accepted. I am, however, posted up at the office front desk for like 80% of my day. This past Tuesday, right before I left for lunch, a middle-aged man came into the office wearing a hairnet, surgical mask, hoodie, and sunglasses. He claimed to be a prospective student and had questions about FAFSA. He was extremely hard to understand. I directed him to the financial aid office across campus, and he kept asking questions that our office cannot answer. I thought, sure, fine, maybe harmless and just not all there mentally. He walked over to our coffee machine, not for communal use by the way, but I didn't want to be a bitch, and just starts making coffee. He's still there when I leave, and one of my staff watches the desk while I'm out. When I return from lunch, he's gone, but walks in after me a few minutes later and just sits in the lobby on his phone before getting up to leave almost immediately. I was off work Wednesday and Thursday, so I came in Friday. I felt like giving my mostly undergrad staff a break, so I gave them permission to head home early, inadvertently leaving me alone in the office. The man came back wearing the exact same clothes, mask, hairnet, and sunglasses within 5 minutes of the office clearing out. Our office is technically open to the public, but isn't really public-facing, and he had no reason for being there, especially that late in the day. He came in, barely acknowledged me, and said he was going to bring back bottled water for our coffee machine. He left again. I'm very creeped out by this, so I messaged my director, working remotely, and he got an IT from the adjacent building to come over with his laptop to keep me company. I explained the situation, and he said he'd stay with me till close. He settled in my director's office just around the corner, but it still looked like I was alone. The man does come back without water and leans against the desk, trying to start a conversation with me. IT guy comes around the corner and stands between me and him, and he quickly changes the subject, asks about financial aid again, for the 4th time in many days, before being directed away and leaving immediately. I'm strongly considering informing campus police about this. Like I said, they already know about the tracker. I have had problems in the past during my undergrad years at a different institution with men and a woman being creepy towards me, but nothing at this level. I have no idea what to do. I can't tell what's Eyelid and what's connected. My family is an hour away and have been no help at all. I have a sinking feeling that things are going to escalate. Update. Hey everyone, I'm alive and well, but not exactly relieved. I got a lot of great advice on my first posts and wanted to let you know what all has happened and what I've done. It's been a lot. The 2 incidents that I and most everyone else were concerned about were the tracker and the office visitor. First off, the owner of the tracker in my car has been identified and it's totally harmless. I called Land Air Sea and they told me that it was, in fact, the car dealership's device that somehow kept getting unplugged and plugged back in. I guess they assumed it was mine every time it was serviced. When I initially called them in December, the dealership swore up and down it wasn't theirs, so I'm really irritated they were so adamant in their denial. The Land Air Sea rep I spoke with was very understanding as to why this would be concerning, and even said he was surprised the police didn't subpoena the company when I reported it. Regardless, that at least crossed the tracker off the list of issues. As for the office visitor, it unfortunately is an ongoing concern that has escalated. I called campus police last Monday, March 9th, and they explained that my director had reported the guy to them already the day before I made my first post. Police didn't tell me much aside from the fact that his behavior seemed extremely unusual and that he disappeared once officers arrived to the building. They gave me the usual spiel about how I should call for police escort if I feel unsafe. I had to get the rest from my director and one of my staff. Apparently, the guy not only had been hanging out around the building, but had been lingering for a long time on the bench just outside my office. I can't see where I'm sitting, at various points throughout the week, including when I was there. I also cleaned out the coffee machine thoroughly and put it in the back room. Doesn't really look like he messed with it. He came back Friday, March 13th, at almost exactly the same time as the previous week. By stroke of sheer fucking luck, I was already in the back conference room before he saw me. I snapped the attached pic of him speaking to a male staff member at the desk and quietly locked myself in the director's office. He was working remotely again. I called campus PD and texted my director. I could hear the man and my staff talking briefly, and the guy left immediately. He didn't linger like he does with me at the desk. Both arriving officer and the division leader, my director's boss, whom my director alerted, arrived quickly and knocked on the door, obviously concerned. The officer communicated to me that he will be found and trespassed. He has not shown up in our public trespass warning records, so I guess that went nowhere. That wasn't the end of it. This Monday, March 16th, we were expecting severe weather, so campus was closed and remote work was permitted. My director, however, decided to work from the office. He saw the man again, but this time he was accompanied by 4 or 5 other men in the halls. My director is a very large man, so they scattered quickly when he barked at them to leave. He told me all this on our one-on-one with him on Tuesday, March the 17th. I feel extremely uneasy about his apparent fixation on me, or the very least my office, and that he's returned several times in alignment with my schedule. I've been having my boyfriend escort me to and from night classes and my office, and will leverage a police or male staff escort if he's ever unavailable. No activity from this man since Tuesday. Since my first post, I did some work back in my apartment as well. I asked the management office if my unit or building had a history of drug crime or any other reason it would be a point of interest, or at least more so than any other unit that's already in a not-so-great neighborhood. The manager is a different one from when I signed my lease back in May, and she found no notes about crime or suspicious activity in that unit. I did remember that sometimes I get mail addressed to someone who I presume is a previous occupant, but nothing in my OSIS repertoire came up with anything suspicious for his name, arrest records, obits, socials, etc. I also purchased some pepper spray, set up a Ring camera. I totally forgot I had one from when I moved in, and should be receiving a stun gun and window cams from Amazon soon. Planning a range date with my boyfriend to put a couple hundred rounds through the Glock as well. But yeah, that's the less than comforting update to this whole situation. At least the tracker is out of the way. But I'm still so on edge with this guy and apparently the group he is or was in. I wonder what will happen if I run into him again, let alone that whole group. I don't know what else to do besides literally never be alone ever. And that's it for all the updates. They haven't posted in 2 months. I just hope they're okay. "15 people dead in 4 days. We need to stop whatever this is." It started with this lone victim, next this couple, then the family of 4. Wait a second, the lead detective said as the news of 16 more victims came in. Potential Stalker by Professional Key 9049. Sorry for the grammar, but I'm using a translator to write this. I'm a 16-year-old Italian girl, and I'm in my 4th year of high school. Last year, I used to take this bus at exactly 7:20 in the morning. Every week, I would see this face that seemed familiar, but I couldn't understand where I might have seen him before. He was a boy who was clearly older, maybe around 17 or 18. He always wore a hat and a neck warmer, and he often looked at me, but I never really paid much attention to it. I would go back home taking the 1:30 p.m. bus, and he was on that one too. But I didn't really notice him because he wasn't the only familiar face who took that bus. He would get off at the same stop as me. To get to school, I'd take a bus, then a tram. Once a week, he would take the exact same means of transportation, both going and coming back. The only difference was when I get off the tram, he wouldn't get off, while other times he would get off at the stop near my school, but then walk in a completely opposite direction from the school. The strangest thing, though, is this. Since taking the 7:20 a.m. bus made me arrive at school almost 15 minutes early, I decided to take the 7:40 bus instead, which made me arrive exactly on time. Suddenly, he also started showing up for that bus at 7:40, but that's not all. During the week, I had 1 less hour of school on Thursdays, which allowed me to take that 1:30 p.m. bus home, the same one that guy in question also took. When the final schedule was released, instead of getting out an hour early on Thursdays, I now had 1 less hour on Tuesdays, and from that point on, every Tuesday, he would take the same bus as me. He would get on, look at me briefly, sit down, and remain still, staring out the window. Then he would take out his phone, text someone, and that was it. On the other days, there was no sign of him at all. Every morning, he'd arrive at the bus stop from a different direction, and on the way back, he would walk in a completely opposite direction from the one he came from in the morning. Every single morning, he arrived at the exact same time as me, and every time from a different direction. As soon as he arrived, he would look at me and then immediately look away. I also happened to see him get on my bus from at least 5 different stops. One morning, I was walking past a market shop and he came out of it right as I passed by. Once, he even arrived at a return bus stop at the exact same moment I did. Also, he had a backpack that didn't look at all like it was a heavy school backpack. During the same period, my TikTok profile constantly showed me a profile view from a user with no profile picture, a few followers in common with me, and a handful of accounts they followed, mostly random people and well-known figures. I never saw him without his neck warmer and hat. As soon as the warmer weather arrived, I never saw him again. On the very first day of school, he suddenly reappeared out of nowhere, still wearing the hat but without the neck warmer. He arrived at the bus stop, stopped, looked at the people there, including me, and then completely changed direction, moving away from the bus stop. From that day on, I never saw him again. The persistent twitch in your left eyelid isn't from caffeine or late night screen time. It is the rhythmic, mechanical pulse of a parasite that has successfully replaced your prefrontal cortex and is currently testing your vocal cords to see if it can mimic your scream perfectly. And with that, our time together is coming to an end. As always, if you have a story you'd like me to narrate, whether true or fictional, you can send it my way 3 different ways. All the links, including the ones to my socials, are down below. I, of course, would like to thank everyone who let me read their stories this evening. The first story, it definitely sounds like the ex love-bombed them and the family was somewhat in on it. It's absolutely terrible that they didn't cut her off when they realized how terrible of a person she is, but it is hard to cut off family. I'm happy they got out of the situation, sadly back with their father, but hopefully you can find some better things to help with the stress besides alcohol. And then we moved to someone being stalked by many people. I wish they post again just so we can know that they're okay, but they haven't posted in 2 months. Not even comments. And today is the last day of May, so maybe they're done with stuff. Hopefully they can move to a better location and maybe a different office. I don't know. I just hope they're okay. And then a story about someone possibly being stalked by a strange guy that just keeps coming from different locations. When you change times to go on buses, they still show up. It definitely does scream that they are watching you in some way. I really hope you're okay and can get away from this stranger. On a more pleasant note, I got some fan art. It's been a while, but thank you Dark Little Voices for doing this lovely picture of my avatar. If you want to check them out, the links will be down below for you guys. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. If you're new, please subscribe and turn that pretty little bell to all notifications. And if you'd be so kind, please hype this video. It helps the algorithm put this to new people. It's more of a newer thing and it's meant for smaller channels like mine. And of course, I would love a comment. Tell me what you think, what kind of stories you like in the future. And if you got this far, put in your comment, not at the bus stop again. If you're listening on the podcast and are able to, please leave a review and a comment. I greatly appreciate it. If you're willing to help this channel and podcast grow, please share it with anyone who might enjoy it. It helps quite a bit. But if you're willing to help in a more financial way, like these lovely people on screen right now, I do have Patreon and memberships where you get early access and a few other bonuses with it. But if you want to do more of a one-time thing, I do PayPal, buy me a coffee, and super thanks. And I completely forgot, but I actually did launch some new merch, so if you want to check that out, links down below for you guys. And if there's something else you want me to make, just tell me. I'm more than willing to make something else as well. But with all that said, I do not expect anything. I just am happy to have you guys watching and listening to these stories. I truly love narrating and bringing stories to life. Sleep tight and don't let 42 bite.